10 Spine-Chilling Cabin Secrets from Appalachia, Terrifying Tales of the Cursed and Haunted. Claire had always heard whispers of the dark legends surrounding the old cabin, but she dismissed them as mere stories. Now, as she stood on the creaky porch with her children, Emma and Jake, she felt the weight of those tales closing in on her. The cabin loomed like a shadow-torn shingles, windows like eyes, watching, waiting. They had fled the chaos of city life for a new beginning, but what awaited them in the depths of the Appalachian Mountains felt anything but welcoming. The air was thick with an unsettling silence that hung like a shroud, broken only by the rustle of leaves. The forest surrounding them was beautiful, yet suffocating, a twisted labyrinth of trees that seemed to close in, blocking out the light. It felt alive and somehow hungry. That first night, as darkness draped the earth, strange sounds echoed from the wood's soft wails that twisted through the silence, making her heart race and her skin prickle. Things turned sinister when she discovered her father's old journal beneath the rotting floorboards. The pages were a frenzy of ink, filled with frantic scrawls about family curses and eerie shadows. His words painted a picture of a legacy marred with darkness and sorrow, of ghostly apparitions that roamed the very woods surrounding her home. The chill that ran down her spine as she read was visceral, a raw, aching fear that pulsed through her veins. This was no ordinary cabin. Dark stories trailed behind it like smoke, and once they were inside, could there be a way out? "Mom, look!" Emma, her face pressed against the window, pointed out to the darkening woods. Claire could hardly breathe as she glanced over. Shadows danced just beyond sight, teasing her with fleeting glimpses of movement. "Stay away from the trees, sweetheart," she urged, battling the rising tide of panic. "You don't want to wander off." But as the days passed, Claire couldn't shake the unease that grew like a thorn in her heart. The kind neighbors who brought pies offered smiles that felt a hair too tight, their eyes betraying pity and something else. Something hidden beneath the surface that whispered of secrets they weren't ready to share. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma began having nightmares, children lost in the woods, their cries haunting and full of despair. Each morning she would wake, trembling, sweat slick on her little forehead, with haunting words spilling from her lips. Claire felt dread twist in her gut. She knew they were not alone here. When a storm rolled in, heavy rain blurred the world into a distorted nightmare, and the wails grew louder, a chorus of despair echoing from the heart of the woods. With every corner turned, every shadow flickering, Claire's instincts screamed she had to protect her children from whatever echoed beyond the tree-line. Then one evening, as twilight hung like a curtain, the shadows called her name. Claire, the sound was chilling, enveloping her with terror. In that suffocating silence, she realized the weight of her lineage and the buried truths waiting to be unearthed. Was it too late to leave, or had fate already set its grip upon them? As she stepped closer to the darkness, the line between reality and myth blurred, hinting at horrors yet to come. The whispers grew louder that night, crawling through the air like tendrils of fog. Claire lay wide awake, heart pounding against her ribcage. She glanced at Emma and Jake, their faces twisted in sleep, oblivious to the terror outside. But she wasn't sleeping, she couldn't. The shadows pressed in like wet wool, thick and suffocating. A sudden crack split the silence. A tree branch? Or something worse? Claire's breath hitched. The noise had come from within the cabin. She strained to listen, every nerve alight with fear. Heart racing, she crept out of bed, her bare feet cool against the wooden floor. In the dim light of the small lantern, shadows flickered around her, transforming familiar shapes into monsters. The air grew colder as she tiptoed into the living room. It smelled of moss and decay. The old rocking chair creaked gently, though no one was there. Claire's pulse raced. Maybe it was just the wind. Yet a chill crawled up her spine that screamed otherwise. "Mom." Jake's small voice broke the tension, pulling her back to reality. She turned, trying to mask her fear, but the weight of dread hung heavy between them. "What is happening?" He rubbed sleep from his eyes, his innocence a stark contrast to the terror beyond the cabin walls. "Shoo, it's okay, buddy," she whispered, pulling him close. They retreated back into the bedroom, where the shadows felt safer, felt like a shield against the creeping darkness that clawed at the cabin's edges. Then Emma woke with a start, her face pale, eyes wide. "Mom!" she gasped. "They're coming. They're looking for us." "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Claire's voice quivered. "The children in my dreams. They want me to play in the woods." Emma's small hands trembled as she spoke, and Claire felt her heart drop. "Those are just dreams, honey. It's just your imagination." But the sharp echoes of the wails from the woods crashed against her thoughts. That eye in the light of the lantern, Emma's expression turned from fear to a strange clarity. "But what if they're real, Mom? What if they can find us?" Before Claire could respond, there was a sudden bang, a forceful knock at the door. Panic surged through her like icy water. "Stay here," she hissed, pushing Jake and Emma back as she grasped a heavy flashlight, gripping it tight as she approached the door. "Who is it?" she called, her voice steadier than she felt. Silence followed, stretching out, taut like a fraying rope ready to snap. Then again, Claire opened the door. The voice was an eerie echo, familiar yet chilling. It was her father's voice, unmistakable, though he had passed years before. A strangled sound caught in her throat. Paranormal tales ran through her mind, spirits returning, voices lingering. But then the door shook violently, splintering wood against her cold hands. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, and she flung herself back, pulling the kids close. "We need to leave. Now," she whispered fiercely, and their small eyes widened at the urgency in her voice. The shadows behind them seemed to pulse, darker now, as if the very walls of the cabin were constricting. They rushed to the back door, their feet slapping against the cold ground. But the moment they crossed the threshold, a cacophony of childlike laughter rang out from the tree-line, dancing around them like an enchanting lullaby laced with mischief. As they stumbled into the unyielding night, the forest loomed like a net, ensnaring their every move. Claire's breath turned to mist, panicking as she scanned the darkness. "Which way?" she shouted, but the laughter crescendoed, drowning out her voice. Was it a warning? Or an invitation? With shadows creeping closer, her resolve hardened. There was no turning back now. But what lay ahead? The chilling call of the lost children? Or the twisted secrets of the cabin, waiting to ensnare them all like the shadows of the forest? Desperation twisted in her gut. They had to keep moving, but were they heading straight toward salvation or further into a sinister trap hidden in the dark? Branches clawed at Claire's arms as they pushed deeper into the forest. Each step felt like a gasp for breath, the air thick with the scent of pine and something rotten. Emma clutched Jake tightly, shushing him as they moved. The laughter hung around them like a noose, sweet yet sinister, tugging at Claire's instincts to flee and fight all at once. "Can you hear that?" Claire whispered, her eyes darting. "Do you hear those children?" Emma nodded, her little face a mask of fear. "They want to play, Mom. No. We don't play with them." Claire hissed, terror slicing through her heart. "We run." The twins fell silent, their wide eyes reflecting moonlight. The laughter echoed again, sharper now, intertwined with whispers that twisted through the trees. They were everywhere, whispering secrets of the dark. Claire turned to push through the underbrush. An unseen hand seemed to tug at her, then the laughter morphed, turning into cries, desperate and hollow. It was a sound she couldn't shake. Was it the children? Or were they warning her? "Mom, please." Jake's quivering voice broke through the horrid symphony. "I want to go home." Home. The word twisted in her gut like a blade. The cabin, it felt behind them, suffocating. And yet it was also a stark reminder of what they were fleeing. No. We can't go back. She snapped. Her frantic gaze swept the dark woods. We need to find a way out. We need to stick together. Then in the periphery something flickered. A soft glow pulsated through the trees. It was more than a spark, it shimmered like a beacon, beckoning them closer. Is that a lantern? Emma asked, squinting toward the light. Claire hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to move away from whatever that glow promised. But it flickered again. Maybe it's someone who can help, she breathed, though doubt gnawed at her stomach. Together, they crept toward the glow, the laughter fading just enough to allow Claire to think. She failed to notice the dark shapes coiling behind them deeper in the forest, lingering just beyond sight. As they closed in, the light transformed into a ghostly lantern swinging from a low branch. Claire's heart raced. Hello. She called, voice heavy with apprehension. The eerie glow revealed nothing but shadows and tangled roots. The air turned heavy, as if it were alive, thickening with warmth. A sudden gust of wind howled through the trees, sending leaves swirling into a frenzy. Mom! It's too spooky here. Jake cried, his small body trembling. Just a little closer she reached for the lantern. The moment her fingers grazed the cool metal, the ground rumbled. Run! She shouted as she grabbed the twins and pulled them away. The lantern's light intensified, flickering violently, then dimming as though feeding off their fear. Behind them, branches snapped, echoing with a deep growl that sent a shiver through her spine. They had been followed. The laughter roared back, now a cacophony of giggles and cries, sounding more furious than playful. Mom, they're coming! Emma screamed, gripping Claire's hand tighter. Keep moving. Claire urged, her fear morphing into raw determination. They plunged deeper into the forest, every crack and snap of twigs feeling like a countdown. The shadows felt alive, twisting around them, whispers turning to shouts, angry and low. But then, the laughter shifted, it became a chant, weaving through the trees, deeper and darker. Play with us, join us. The hairs on her neck stood on end. They don't want to play. They want to take us. They crashed through a thicket, stumbling into a small clearing. Breathing hard, Claire felt a fresh wave of dread wash over her. At the edge of the clearing stood something grotesque. A shape moved in the darkness, a figure draped in the shadows, hazy yet disturbingly familiar. Mom, Jake whispered, pointing. Claire's stomach dropped. The figure leaned forward, and Claire's heart thundered. Then it stepped into the moonlight, and she froze. It was a little girl, her eyes dark pools glistening, smile stretched wide and impossibly wrong. You're late, she said in a sing-song voice. Where's your home? Claire murmured, every instinct screaming to turn and run. The girl tilted her head, laughter spilling out like a waterfall. You'll find out soon enough. With the trees closing in, Claire knew they couldn't wait. The woods beckoned them again, but now the peril felt real, a darkness that was tangible, insatiable. She dragged the kids, fear saturating every inch of her body. They had to escape, but freedom lay shrouded in mystery. What would await them outside this cursed place? Salvation or even more darkness? The laughter rose, brighter than before, ripping through the air, drowning out every thought. They were inside a nightmare, and the end felt more elusive than ever. As they broke through the underbrush, a figure just ahead, she realized, the forest was alive, and it knew their names. What awaited them next? Would they find safety where they least expected it? Or would they walk straight into a trap they couldn't escape? Branches loomed above like skeletal hands, a shroud of darkness enveloping them. The laughter climbed to a frenzied pitch, echoing in Claire's mind as they ran, hungry, relentless. Every step felt heavier, the weight of dread pulling her down. Faster, kids! Don't look back! She urged, dragging them through the undergrowth. Jake stumbled, his little legs failing him. "Mom, I can't." In that moment, the laughter twisted into anguished screams that echoed from all directions, drowning out their cries, amplifying her fear into panic. Claire glanced back, catching the silhouette of the little girl still watching, her smile now a cruel smirk, mouth stretching wider as if tasting their terror. Claire could almost hear the taunts woven into the wind. "Come play with us." The forest grew denser, the trees closing in like spectators to her despair. She was losing the sense of direction, the way home trailing behind them like a tether fraying with every step. And then, without warning, the ground beneath them changed. The forest floor turned soft, almost sponge-like, a graveyard of decayed leaves and forgotten remnants. Then they hit a clearing. The air crackled with an unnatural energy. Pale moonlight beamed down, revealing a broken swing set standing forlornly in the center, rusting chains clinking softly. Claire's heart pounded as she realized this was no ordinary playground. Shadows flickered in and out, dancing along the edges, whispering promises of old games and lost laughter. "Mom, I don't like this," Emma whimpered, eyes darting nervously. "We should keep going," Claire said, squaring her shoulders. But even as she spoke, icy fingers of doubt clawed at her heart. A deafening silence followed, swallowing the laughter, leaving nothing but the beating of her heart and the rustle of leaves. It was too quiet, it felt wrong, and then, the whispers began anew, rising in a chorus around them. "Stay, play forever, Mom, I want to go home." Jake whimpered again, gripping her hand tighter. "You will," Claire promised, though uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Searching wildly, she spotted an opening through the trees ahead, shadows swirling in faint shapes, beckoning her towards the path. "Follow me." But as they turned to run, Claire felt a tug, something cold wrapped around her ankle. She looked down just in time to see twisted roots rising from the earth, snaking around her legs, pulling her down. "No. Stop." "Oh no, Mom!" cried Jake, eyes wide with horror. As Claire struggled against the roots, the laughter returned, a cacophony of delighted children echoing through the darkness. Faces began to emerge from the shadows, children with hollow eyes and twisted smiles, all staring at her with hungry expectation. "Join us. Play forever." "Get off me!" Claire shouted, fighting against the relentless grip. The roots coiled tighter, dragging her closer to the ground. Panic rocketed through her. She was sinking into the earth, pulled into a nightmarish embrace. "Mom!" Emma screamed, finally breaking from Claire's grasp, but the shadows surged, clutching at her small frame. "Help! Emma!" In a desperate lunge, Claire reached out, and the little girl's chilling laughter pierced the air. Suddenly, the lantern that hung from a branch flickered back to life, brightening the clearing. The children with their ghastly faces hesitated, fearful of the light. And in that moment, Claire bolted forward, grabbing Jake and pulling Emma away from the shadows. "It likes the darkness," Claire shouted, urgency flooding through. "Stick to the light." Forcing her way past the childlike figures that recoiled from the lantern's glow, she maneuvered through the breaking shadows, each step laced with the echoes of hurried breaths and tortured cries. Ahead loomed a fading light, a faint glimmer of possibility, but just as they neared it, the ground ripped apart around them, sending Claire stumbling. She looked over her shoulder to see the little girl, grinning, muttering, "You can't leave." The laughter became a roar, drowning out her thoughts again, wrapping around them like a vice. They had to escape the cycle, but the forest seemed to conspire against them. As the laughter faded into haunting whispers, Claire realized they were not just running from the dark, they were racing towards it, but what lay waiting beyond that flickering light? Would they find salvation or be swallowed whole by the shadows that thrived on fear? The ground pulsed beneath Claire's feet as the crimson light beckoned, a fragile path of hope. Desperation coursed through her veins. She could taste the metallic fear in the air, thick and suffocating. "Run!" she screamed, dragging Jake and Emma behind her, their small hands slipping in hers as they raced toward the brightness. But the shadows roared back, a hungry wind that rustled the leaves, whispering secrets meant to lure them deeper into the forest's clutch. "Stay, play," they cooed, teasing and taunting as if mocking their escape. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs, every beat screaming for survival, for her children. Suddenly, the root that had gripped her leg lashed out again, snaring her ankle tightly. She fell, dropping the lantern. The light flickered wildly, casting frantic shadows that seemed to dance like phantoms, writhing and contorting at the edges of her vision. No! Claire gasped, scrambling to grab the lantern, but it slipped from her fingers, extinguishing with a breathless pop. Darkness flooded in, and the shadows pressed closer, the atmosphere chilling as though the very fabric of the forest was closing in on them. The sound of hollow laughter surrounded them once more, this time dipped in a sinister undertone that sent ice gripping Claire's spine. The air grew thick, heavy with something palpable. Fear, despair, and the distinct aroma of rot pervaded her senses. "Mom! What do we do?" Jake's voice quivered, breaking through Claire's spiraling panic. "Hold on to each other," Claire shouted, the flames of determination igniting inside her. She grasped their hands tighter, pulling them closer to her, warding off the suffocating darkness that clawed at them. "Stick together." But even as she spoke, the children began to fade, their small forms flickering like candle flames. Claire's heart sank. The shadow's laughter grew into a cacophony filled with joy but tinged with a sadistic hunger. "We want to play." The voices chorused. The chilling words resonated in her bones. "No more games, not like this," she retorted, feeling defiance rise within her. With every ounce of strength, she yanked the kids forward, dragging them through the thickening air. Suddenly, a strange rustling erupted nearby, freezing the trio in place. Out of the underbrush emerged figures, shrouded in darkness, indistinct and shifting. The edge of the clearing felt like a precipice. Each silhouette began to take form. Mischievous grins stretched across ghostly faces, their eyes hollow and yearning. "Mommy, join us," they echoed, their voices a distorted mimicry of childhood innocence, pulling at Claire's heart like taffy. "Don't look, kids. Look at me," Claire shouted, but her voice wavered. Behind her, the little girl lingered, standing still, a lone figure in the shadows, calm and sinister against the chaos. The smirk on her face twisted around something evil. "You can't resist." A surge of anger erupted inside Claire. "No. She wouldn't give in. We're leaving," she declared, her voice resolute. She glanced back, her heart struggling against the weight of fear, the girl's diabolical smile etched in her mind. The moment stretched long in anguish as she prepared for another desperate charge into the dark. With a fierce yank, she pulled Jake and Emma into a sprint. They barreled through the trees, their lungs burning, brushing against branches that snapped like brittle bones. The laughter fused with their screams, building in volume, transforming into a deafening clamor that threatened to shatter her resolve. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath Claire once more, a sinkhole gaping open. It loomed before them, an abyss painted in ink-black shadows. "Mom!" Emma cried, slipping as Claire struggled to maintain her grip. With a fierce pull, Claire caught Emma before she tumbled in. But the force of whatever lived below was strong. It was angry, and it was reaching. Torrential fear clouded Claire's mind. "Don't let go!" Claire screamed, watching the edges fracture, the shadows swirling as if alive. She could feel their icy breath, wrapping around her legs, pulling her in. Time stretched for a long moment, turning the air thick. "What do we do?" Jake whimpered, his eyes wide and shining with tears. Then Claire saw something glimmering within the sinkhole, a small box, half buried, bloodied and rusted, spilling darkness like a broken promise. And in that heartbeat, she felt the shadow's pull strengthen, dragging her toward the secret it harbored. What was in the box? What lies beneath? She whispered, feeling the weight of horror wrap around them all. The darkness erupted in laughter, a prelude to what awaited them in the deep. Claire's heart raced as the laughter swelled, a sinister melody that vibrated against her chest, threatening to drown out her thoughts. She clutched Jake and Emma, feeling their warmth against her skin, grounding her in the presence of her children. The box smiled back at her from the sinkhole, an invitation masked in terror, and just as she leaned in closer, something unearthly surged from the darkness, a twisted hand, skeletal and clawed, reaching toward her. "Mom!" Emma's cry pierced the chaos, dragging Claire's focus back to the moment, to the suffocating fear wrapping around them. The shadows shifted and swirled, hungry to claim what they craved, and the ground trembled beneath her, vibrating with a malevolent pulse. "Pull back!" Claire shouted as she felt the weight of the abyss draw them in. In one swift motion, she yanked Jake and Emma to her, anchoring them on the firm ground where they still stood. Their eyes were wide, tears glistening, reflecting the crimson glow that flickered like a heartbeat in the distance. The figures in the forest stirred, feeding off their fear, the hollow laughter echoing as they moved closer. Claire could see their faces in the dim light, twisted and broken, full of mockery and glee, each grin stretching unnaturally, as if its owner had long forgotten what it meant to truly smile. "Playtime!" They chimed, an ominous cheer ringing in the air. "Not today!" Claire roared, her voice carrying an unexpected strength. She turned, pushing them back toward the trees, afraid if she lingered, the shadows might drag them under. But as they moved, something strange began to happen. The leaves crackled loudly beneath their feet, when they should have been silent. Each step echoed like thunder, filling the air with a sense of foreboding. Suddenly, the laughter faded, replaced by whimpers, sounds so faint they could have been conjured from her own terror. Claire paused, glancing back at Jake and Emma, who stood rigid, eyes locked on something behind her. "Mom!" Jake whispered, dread etching his small features. Claire turned slowly, a chill creeping down her spine as a swirling dark mist rose from the sinkhole, encircling her. "Do you see that?" Emma asked, pointing. Within the mist, shapes began to form, faces, twisted with horror, mouths agape in silent screams. They grasped at the air, reaching for salvation that would never come. The darkness thickened, and the hand that reached up from the depths had become more distinct. It seemed desperate now, clawing upward, willing to take whatever it could grasp. "Run!" Claire shouted, urgency spilling from her lips like boiling water. She grabbed the children's hands, pulling them into a sprint, adrenaline fueling her movements. The darkness pursued, wisps curling around their ankles, begging them to stop, to listen, to succumb. The children's breaths turned ragged as they darted, feet pounding against the earth like drums in the dead of night. Branches reached out like skeletal hands, scratching her arms, but she didn't flinch. There was no room for pain. Not when the laughter returned, mocking her escape once more. Suddenly, an echoing roar split through the air, a voice that was both feral and human, covered with the weight of anguish, reverberating from within the ground itself. With each frantic step, Claire felt as if she were racing against time. The shadows played tricks on her vision, closing in like drapes at the end of a performance, smothering the last glimmers of light. "Mom! I can't see!" Emma cried, voice trembling as they burst out onto a narrow, muddy path. "Just keep running," Claire urged, panic lacing her voice. They pressed forward, not knowing where it led but certain it was the only way to safety, and just as hope flickered a light, bright and searing ahead, another loud crack rang through the air, shattering the illusion. The ground trembled violently, and beneath them, the earth began to split apart, a chasm widening, ready to swallow them whole. "Hold on!" Claire yelled as she felt the pull underneath her. Just as they reached the edge, something caught her eye. A reflection in the soil, glistening sinisterly, the twisted box mocking her once more from the depths. "Claire! It's coming!" Jake screamed, the realization dawning on her like a noose tightening around her throat. She knew the laughter, the desire to play, was growing. Her heart raced faster than her legs could carry them. "What's in the box?" she screamed against the chaos rising around them, the shadows clawing hungrily at their backs, but the ground let out a deafening crack, and the shadows roared. And then, silence descended, heavy and suffocating, as Claire braced for what was about to break loose. Claire's breath hitched in her throat. The silence around them felt alive, pulsing with menace. It was no longer the deafening roar of chaos, it was the calm before a storm, thick with the promise of horror. She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against her skin, whispering her name softly, coaxing her to surrender. "Mom!" Emma whimpered, clutching her hand tighter. Claire looked down at her daughter. Fear hollowed out Emma's eyes, and that fear burrowed deep into Claire's heart. She couldn't let them fall into that abyss, not now. Suddenly, movement snaked across the ground, a ripple of shadows coiling together, forming distorted shapes that danced like marionettes. The box loomed larger in her mind, its twisted smiles woven into the fabric of the nightmare. What secrets did it hide? Somehow, she knew that the answers lie within that cursed object. "Run!" she shouted again, breaking the spell of silence. Claire jerked Jake and Emma into motion, darting forward, their feet sliding precariously in the mud. The world blurred around them, colors blending into a grotesque smear of gray and black. They stumbled, anxiety pulsing faster than the erratic beating of her heart. The ground trembled beneath them, and with each step, the fear of falling into the waiting chasm tugged at her heels. But within that chaos, a voice edged through the thundering silence, a comforting tone that felt alien yet eerily familiar. It beckoned her, threading through the noise like an old friend with sinister intentions. "Don't look back," Claire commanded herself, pushing her mind to focus. But the instinct was there, that unholy urge to witness what pursues them. The footsteps behind them grew heavier, thudding in sync with the dread thrumming in her veins. Each thud resonated like an omen, a warning of what lay in their wake. Suddenly, another chilling credential of fear struck, a laugh so close, so distorted, that it froze her blood. There, in the periphery, she caught a glimpse of something long and thin. A long, shadowy figure darting through the trees, moving with unnatural speed. It was impossible to tell where it began or ended, flickering in and out of existence like a candle in the wind. "Keep going," she urged, adrenaline surging through her as she pulled the kids forward. What little remained of her rational instincts screamed for her to flee, to find shelter from whatever monstrosity lurked behind. They veered off the muddy path, plunging deeper into the woods, frantically searching for a refuge where the shadows couldn't reach them. But the trees pulsed with life, their branches clawed at Claire as they rushed past, as if to hold her back, to trap them in their grasp. She felt the panic rise, every instinct screaming to abandon the children and save herself. Then, ahead, a flickering light caught their attention, a dim glow peeking through the jagged branches. Could it be salvation? Or a cruel trick? As they approached, the sound of laughter twisted the air once more, slicing through her thoughts. It rang hollow and sickness filled her stomach, but she couldn't stop now. The desperate hope that this place might hold answers fueled her movements. Bursting through the underbrush, they stumbled into a small clearing, the illumination bathing everything in an unsettling glow. But it wasn't a sanctuary. Instead, they found a circle of stones, ancient and cold, each one etched with strange symbols, as if guarding a portal to another realm. "Mom, what is this?" Jake whispered, stepping back instinctively. Claire felt her heart drop, the realization washing over her like ice water. "What have we found?" she muttered, mesmerized by the patterns in the stone. The laughter intensified, a chorus of broken voices echoing from the depths of the shadows behind them. Was she being lured here? What awaited them in the light, and what horrors lay behind them? Suddenly, the ground beneath the stones shifted, trembling as an angry rumble broke the unsettling atmosphere. The air thickened, and Claire knew whatever had been unleashed was about to show its true form. "Run!" she screamed, but it echoed hollow as the world around them began to unravel. An unseen force surged upward, pulling at the children, pulling at her out of the light, deeper into the darkness surrounding them. And then, the shadows screamed. What will Claire discover deep within the evil that hunts them? The ground shook harder, a violent tremor that sent Claire crashing to her knees. She gasped, lunging for Jake and Emma, but the pull of the darkness was relentless. Shadows streamed over them, dark tendrils reaching with a hungry insistence. Claire felt herself growing weaker, her fingers slipping from her children's grasp. "Mom!" Emma shrieked, her voice stretching thin in the heavy air. No. Claire cried out, fighting to keep her head above the rising tide of fear. She could see the silhouette of the box in her mind again, teasing her with its allure. The laughter echoed sharper now, a cacophony of twisted glee that reeked of malice. It mocked her, that deranged revelry. Unearthly shapes flickered just beyond the circle of stones, darting closer, each time skirting the glow as if it were fire. Breath short and frantic, Claire scrambled to get her footing. She would not let them take her children. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, using every ounce of strength to drag them closer. But the space between them clawed at her, distending under the weight of what lurked just out of sight. With a final surge, Claire reached out and latched onto their arms, pulling them toward the stones, toward the flickering light. For a moment, she felt warmth, that fleeting sensation of safety trapping them in a cocoon. The laughter softened, as though peering in from a distance, but it wouldn't last. A deep rumble growled beneath her, an ancient voice that vibrated through the earth. The stones rattled, their carvings pulsating as if alive, revealing glimpses of scenes long past. Faces of the damned flickered on the stone surface, eyes wide with terror, mouths frozen in screams. "Mom, what's happening?" Jake whimpered, his gaze darting to the shadows behind them, breathing hard. Claire's heart cried out for him. There was no way the box could contain all of that horror. It wasn't just an object, it was a gateway, alive and drunk with blood. "We have to find a way to close it," she cried, determination fueling her as she took a half-step forward. Each stone felt as though it pulsed beneath her fingers, thrumming with latent power. The laughter ignited again, a terrible wave washing over them like ice. It warped reality, momentarily pooling memories of the happiest days, her children playing in sunlight now warped through the haze of fear, a cruel contrast to the nightmare encroaching upon them. "If we can break the circle, maybe it will." Before she could finish, the shadows surged, a living tide that roared with a voracious snarl. With one violent sweep, it lunged towards them, tearing through the space she had just occupied. "Claire!" A voice shouted, one that wasn't her own. It resonated deep within her, twisting with an urgency that felt known yet unfamiliar. "Run!" she screamed, adrenaline slicing through the fear. She yanked the kids closer and turned, sprinting for the shrinking circle of light. It was now or never. But the shadows danced with malevolent glee, coiling in their periphery like a serpent ready to strike. Claire could feel their presence saturating the air, thick with malicious intent. An icy tendril grazed her neck. She shivered, a chill settling into her very soul. "Going somewhere?" the voice crooned from the depths, sultry and sinister. Claire fought back a wave of nausea. Ahead, the circle flickered, dimming with every step, every second they hesitated. Instinct clawed at her. It was now or they would be devoured. With a final cry, she launched herself and the children through the dwindling light, but the shadows surged from all sides, a dark wave determined to consume them. And then, just as the world twisted around her, the shadows roared in triumph. What price would Claire pay to break free, and what horrors awaited her if she failed? The world spun, dimming into chaos. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, praying they would tear through the darkness, but the weight of shadows pressed harder. Hands clutched to her children felt frail, as if they were casting a spell to keep the darkness at bay. Suddenly, a stinging light burst forth, shattering the veil of shadows. They were thrown into a strange, trembling void, where whispers slid through the air like broken glass. It pierced every part of Claire's being. The laughing grew muted, like a far-off nightmare. She opened her eyes to a twisted landscape. They had escaped the immediate threat, but where were they now? The terrain was unrecognizable. Twisted trees clawed at a moonless sky, their gnarled branches reaching like skeletal fingers. Her heart raced. The shadows had not dissipated but lingered, ominous and palpable. "Mom, where are we?" Jake's voice barely rose above a whisper, trembling with fear. "We'll find a way back," Claire managed, though doubt gnawed at her insides. The air smelled of damp earth and something metallic, like rusted iron. An unnatural chill wove around them, wrapping each breath with frost. Emma shivered against Claire, her small body quaking. What was that? She asked, eyes darting around. Claire forced a steady breath. I don't know, but we need to keep moving. They trudged deeper into the oppressive darkness. Each step echoed eerily, the sounds of their feet swallowed by the eerie stillness. The silence tightened until it felt alive, watching them but from where? Claire turned her head, scanning the trees, searching for any sign. As they pressed on, Claire spotted faint lights flickering between the branches, yellow and green, like will-o'-the-wisps. Instinctively, something warned her against it. Stay close. She commanded, but curiosity tugged at her. Look. Emma pointed, her face lighting up. What if they lead us back? No. But the words caught in her throat. A figure emerged from the shadows, its outline shifting, barely humanoid. Sudden terror seized Claire. Let us go this way. She jerked the kids toward a thinner stretch of trees. But Emma was frozen, captivated by the lights dancing like trapped spirits. Emma, come on. Before she could pull her daughter away, the figure spoke, its voice low and honeyed. Don't be afraid, little one. We can help you return. Claire's heart sank. Stay back. She hissed. We don't want your help. The figure smiled, a grotesque contortion of features. Shadows rippled around it, unsettling and alive. Oh, but the path to safety is fraught with danger. Just a step closer, and I can show you the way. Run. Claire forced the children to move, adrenaline igniting panic. They turned, bolting down a twisted path, but the laughter echoed around them again, growing louder, mocking. Branches snagged at their clothing, pulling at their skin. Claire felt sharp pricks, the shadows reaching, hungry. Suddenly, a burst of energy surged through her, flinging her and the kids forward, tumbling into the brush. They landed hard, breathless, but the laughter still pulsed like a heartbeat, vibrating in her bones. Why won't it stop? Jake whimpered. Claire gathered them close, heart racing, trying to muster her resolve. The shadows pressed in, her mind clouded with dread. We have to find that circle. It's our only chance. Before they could regain their footing, the ground trembled beneath them again, an ominous rumble sending a shiver through the air. What is that? Emma gasped, eyes wide, the laughter twisted into screams of fury, rising from the depths of the forest, hungry, insatiable. Then, below them, the earth cracked open. What is happening? Claire screamed as the fissure widened, shadows spilling forth like a living tide. The children clung to her as she clawed her way backward, heart pounding. They were trapped in a nightmare, and the abyss was calling. Every instinct urged her to flee, but with each glance back, she realized the darkness had no intention of letting them go. And as they hung on the edge of that dark chasm, something inside Claire snapped. Hold on! She yelled. Ready to face whatever horror awaited them, but the only question lingering in the air was whether they could escape this twisted fate before it consumed them whole, or if they were already too late. The ground convulsed beneath them, violent and unyielding, as Claire felt the shadows pulling, clawing a relentless snare that sought to devour them whole. With every heartbeat, doubt crashed in, stealing her breath. Was this the end? Could anything shield her children from the dark forces surrounding them? Hold tight! Claire shouted, gripping Jake and Emma even harder, their tiny bodies trembling against hers. She couldn't let them go. Tears burned in her eyes, mixing with the fear that rippled through her. We will get out of this. The earth groaned, rumbling like it was alive, shifting and reshaping. Shadows coiled around the fissure as if tasting the air, eager for their prey. And in that moment, something shifted deep within Claire. She saw their faces, her children's innocent faces, their eyes wide with fear. It ignited a fury inside her, fueling her with a determination to fight back. Keep running! She screamed, forcing her legs to churn, her heart thundering against a wall of dread. Together, they scrambled back from the chasm as the cracks yawned wider, their very foundation shaken to its core. More shadows twisted and spun out from the depths, howling with rage, desperate to reach them, but Claire's instincts kicked in. In the chaos, she spotted the flickering lantern they had dropped. It lay just beyond the swirling darkness, a glimmer of hope amidst the storm. The light! She yelled, pointing toward it. We can use the lantern. Mom, be careful. Emma's voice quivered as she darted alongside her brother, fear mixing with resolve. I will be. Claire promised fiercely, wiping her face free of tears and dread. Just trust me. They veered toward the lantern, moving faster and faster as the darkness roared behind them, a wave of sinister laughter like a cruel symphony urging them into submission. It wants to play. Jake cried desperately, his small hands searching for assurance. Claire felt the old, haunted stories roar back to life like spirits awakened, wrapping around her legs. But she would not falter. The moment she reached the lantern, she snatched it up, feeling the cool metal against her calloused palm. With a quick flick, the flame ignited, casting a warm, golden light that splashed over the relentless shadows. Get back! Claire shouted, lifting the lantern high, her arms shaking from the weight of it all. Instantly, the shadows recoiled, their laughter faltering as if the light alone held the power to repel them. They darted backward, drawn but terrified. It doesn't want to play anymore. Emma yelled, hope flickering in her voice. Stay close. Claire said, her grip on the lantern firm as she shone the light toward the gathering shadows. The spectral figures snarled, twisting as if the light seared them. Claire felt emboldened, pushing further. We're not just going to stand here. The forest responded, the whispers fading, making way for her courage. Follow me. She shouted, leading her children towards the narrow path flanked by gnarled branches. The light illuminated the road ahead, with shadows at their backs. They ran, the weight of despair lifting with each step. The chaos behind them mellowed, replaced with the rustle of leaves and the distant sounds of the forest coming back to life, as if awakening from a nightmare. They burst through the trees, stumbling into a clearing where moonlight washed over them like a balm, illuminating their escape. Breathing heavily, Claire turned to her children, their faces streaked with dirt and fear, eyes wide with uncertainty but alive. We did it. We got away. She gasped, collapsing to her knees, wrapping her arms around them tightly. I thought we'd lost everything, Mom. You were amazing. Jake grinned, relief flooding through his little frame. Emma smiled, her innocence shining through the remnants of fear, but in the back of Claire's mind, the truths buried deep within the wood stirred. They weren't freed completely. Slowly, they stood back up, witnessing the world around them. The forest had changed with their escape, eerily quiet yet oddly comforting. The shadows lingered, writhing in the distance but no longer threatening. However, the history of the cabin echoed faintly in her ears like ghostly whispers. Do you think it's over? Emma asked, shivering against the cool night air. I don't know, sweetheart, Claire replied, taking a deep breath. But we're together. We can face anything together. As they turned back toward the path leading home, Claire stole one last look at the lingering darkness behind them. A chill ran down her spine although the flames flickered warmly in her grasp. The cabin's skeleton still stood, a reminder of dark tales and haunting secrets. But it also stood as a testament to their survival. She had fought for them and for their future. Let us go home, Claire whispered softly, her heart full with a new fire, a promise to herself, to protect her children from whatever darkness might come next. They walked away from the haunted forest, hand in hand, heading toward dawn, where new beginnings awaited on the horizon. There was light ahead, and it was theirs to claim. Don't miss the next exclusive stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the gripping tales that await you. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm and reach more audience members who crave the chills and thrills we deliver. Flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about this ending. We want to hear your thoughts on Claire's journey, and hey, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.